Hi everybody, it's Terry Ryder from Hotspotting, and this is my regular weekly feature, The War on Misinformation. I'm going to start with a subject that I've spoken about in the recent past, but it warrants further discussion. I keep seeing headlines in media and newspapers around the country declaring property booms in towns close to major mining projects. I've got one here in front of me. The headline says, "This year has been crazy. Mining towns property boom," and it's talking about Clermont in central Queensland, and suggesting that it's having a property boom because it's the closest township to the proposed Adani Carmichael coal mine. And I urge property investors around Australia not to be tempted by this kind of stuff. It's fool's gold for property investors. And why is that? Well, here's another article which graphically depicts why towns near major mining projects no longer have property booms. There was a time when they did in the not too distant past. If there was a major iron ore mine or coal mine within reasonable proximity of a country town, that town would have maybe a mini property boom because the workers, while that mine was under construction, would be renting local accommodation. But it was, even in those days, it was fool's gold for property investors because there'd be a major spike, and then when the mining construction phase was over, that mine, that market would go into slump. So very strong high peaks and deep troughs in markets like that. But it's not happening anymore because the mining companies no longer have their personnel renting accommodation in local towns. They're building mining camps, and that's the reason why we saw boom bust in some of the towns of central Queensland, like Moranbah, why Gladstone had a property slump at a time when they had $60 billion worth of new gas projects under construction in that city. All the workers were fly-in, fly-out workers staying in camps. And that's the way they do it now. And here's an article from the Australian Financial Review recently talking about the new South Flank iron ore mine being developed in Western Australia by the big Australian BHP. It's a 3.6 billion, that's US dollars, project, so it's a big one. And there's going to be many thousands of jobs created by this project. Is it going to precipitate a property boom in some nearby town? Well, no. BHP is spending $150 million on its mining camp. So all the people working in this project will fly in while they're working their shifts on the mine. They'll be staying at this mining camp, and when they're finished, they'll fly out, and they'll be spending their high wages back in Perth or wherever it is that they're flying in from. This mining camp is going to have a 3-story cafe, a gymnasium, a 3,000 book library, a kitchen for cooking master classes. It's going to have a swimming pool, a squash court, an outdoor cinema, sports fields, and 2,500 rooms. Now, this is the new norm. It has been for a number of years now, and it's not going to change anytime soon. It's the way they do things now. Workers in major resources related projects no longer buying or renting local houses or apartments. They're staying in the mining camps. They fly in, fly out. So when you next see a headline declaring a property boom or a potential property boom somewhere approximate to a major mine like the Adani coal mine, there's been lots of articles talking about potential property booms in all sorts of places related to that project. Don't be tempted. It's not going to happen. And if there is some kind of uplift at some of these locations as a result of that, mines like Adani, it's going to be very short term, and it's going to be a bit of a spike and then a slump. Just to give you some numbers to illustrate what happens or what has happened back in the old days when mining workers were renting local accommodation, Moranbah, the town in central Queensland, its median price rose as high as $750,000. And then the new world came to mining projects, the new fly-in, fly-out mining camp scenario. And as a result of that, Moranbah's median house price fell from $750,000 to 150,000. It's now starting to rise again a little bit, but it's going to be a long, long time, if ever, before its median house price returns to those crazy days. So that's the new norm. Don't be tempted. Just another issue I want to touch on refers to some comments made recently by the Reserve Bank Governor, Philip Lowe, making the point, and I think it's a point very well made, that while lower interest rates have been helpful for property markets in places like Sydney and Melbourne, low interest rates did not cause their property booms, because there have been so many economists who explain the booms in Sydney and Melbourne by talking about record low interest rates. Well, sorry, that doesn't explain those booms at all. It's a bit of a furphy, and it shows the lack of understanding on residential property markets by most economists. If record low interest rates was the prime motivator of those booms, we would have had booms everywhere. But while Sydney and Melbourne were booming, Perth and Darwin, with the same level of interest rates, were going backwards, and places like Adelaide and Brisbane were not going backwards, but they certainly weren't booming. They were basically just chugging along very low rates of growth. We've had record low interest rates for a long time for most of Australia. We had a property boom, and those major cities like Sydney and Melbourne still with even right now, even lower interest rates, but their markets have been going backwards for the last couple of years. It's about other things. Real estate markets derive from what's happening in local economies. It's all about the local economy. Is it a strong, diverse economy? Is it creating jobs? Is its population growing? Is money being spent on infrastructure? Those are the things that create property cycles. Sydney and Melbourne have been the exceptions to the national norm. The national norm has been the economy has been stuttering a bit. That's why interest rates are so low. But Sydney and Melbourne have been the exception. They've been the strongest economies in the country, boosted by strong population growth and by big spending on infrastructure. And that's why they had their property booms. The level of interest rates really has very little to do with it. So next time you see an economist explaining real estate in terms of the level of interest rates, turn the page or change the channel, because you're dealing with a charlatan who doesn't really understand. Okay, so that's it for now. That's my warm information for this week. We'll do it same time next week. Look forward to speaking to you again then. Bye for now.